And the Oscar goes to Taika Waititi, Jojo Rabbit.
This is the first Oscar and third nomination for Taika Waititi.
You have made me the happiest man in the whole restaurant.
Is there anyone on this planet who dislikes this man? Taika David Waititi, formerly known as Taika Cohen, thank God he changed that, is one of the most prolific filmmakers of all time. Starting with his award-winning short 2 Cars, 1 Night, Taika has gone on to completely revolutionize the comedy game, bringing forth new ideas, interesting characters, and a surprising amount of depth and heart to each one of his films. But as prolific and loved a creator as Taika is, he shockingly only has 6 theatrical full-length movies to his name, as of this moment at least. Now, before the release of what might very well be his biggest film yet, Thor: Love and Thunder, I thought it'd be fun to take a look through his catalog and see where his movies rank amongst each other. Starting with... So just straight from the beginning, I'm just gonna come out and say it. I don't think Taika Waititi's got a bad movie under his belt. And I mean, I guess that kind of completely goes against the whole point of a fucking tier list, but I don't care, dude. I can't fucking make some shit up, man. This dude's a good fucking director. So even though this movie's in last place, it's still better than most movies, you know what I'm saying? So Eagle vs. Shark came out in 2006 and was Taika's first movie, but you'd have to be pretty fucking stupid to not be able to tell that from your first viewing. The movie isn't that bad or anything, it just comes off as very amateur, especially for the time being 2007 and all. And it feels the most indie out of all of Taika's films, if that makes sense. Which is saying something because the dude pretty much just makes fucking big budget indie movies for a living. The movie's humor is also super reminiscent of like a Nacho Libre or a Napoleon Dynamite, more specifically Napoleon. Which, I mean, it's not a bad thing. I love those movies and I love their super awkward sense of humor. But you can definitely feel that Jared Hess inspiration that Taika has, especially on this first film. The pacing isn't anything to write home about either. While it's definitely not awful or anything like that, there's just a lot that Taika was trying to put into this movie. Just the way everything works and the way everything comes together at the end, it just kind of felt rushed in certain places and like it was drawn out too much in certain places. Besides those couple of random gripes I got with the film though, I got pretty much nothing else but love to say for the movie. I think Lauren Taylor and especially Jermaine Clement do fucking amazing here. They both do such a great job as bringing these fucking weird and twisted and all around unlikable characters into being fucking lovable, man. You love him by the end of the movie. Even Jermaine Clement's character, Jared, he's such a fucking asshole and he's so mean-spirited and selfish and just all around not the person you want to be rooting for. But by the end of the movie, you get his pain. You see why he does the things he does. And you feel for him by the end, you know? Taika does a great job with that. And so do the actors themselves. The plot follows the two leads as they fall in love and simultaneously get introduced into each other's weird fucking lives. Jared is also on a revenge spree throughout the movie, trying to kill his old childhood bully, so he's pretty much spending most of the time training for that, and not paying any attention to his new girlfriend Lily, who is Lauren Taylor's character. And from there you could see how the problems would arise between the two and their newfound relationship, and eventually in the end, you know, it all gets resolved. It's not a super complex plot, but there is definitely a lot of heart to this movie, and something that makes it a little extra special than most of the mid-2000s romantic comedy movies. And I think a lot of that has to do with Taika's weird-ass style of filmmaking. Like, no one else can pull a movie like this off, really. Or at least not as effortlessly as Taika does it. Eagle vs. Shark just has a lot of weird shit in it, and it's cool to see. None of it's really that bad. So, all in all, it's a good first effort from Taika. 6.5 out of 10. Boy is definitely Taika Waititi's most personal story. Especially when you go ahead and research Taika's actual personal life, you really begin to see the parallels and the themes and experiences that Boy faces throughout the movie. Especially when compared with Taika's real-world relationship with his actual father, it really becomes apparent, and shows just how much Taika put his real life into the story. Which I think is a good thing. While Boy is probably Taika's least funny movie, it makes up for it by being his most heartfelt. And I think a big part of that comes down to Taika playing Boy's father, who serves as both the main villain and the heart of the whole story, which cannot be easy to pull off, but it's done perfectly here, and easily Taika's best performance to date. And that's not to say the movie's completely devoid of humor either. There's definitely quite a few pretty good jokes here and there.
Well, here's my trick. I tell the girls that I'm afraid of undies, and when they want me to go away, they show me their undies.
But even though Boy is a lot slower of a film and much more insightful than most of Taika's other work, it definitely benefits from this and somehow makes the movie that ends with a New Zealand parody of Thriller the most serious of Taika's works. But if I'm being honest, I just prefer his more silly and out there stories, even though Boy is definitely great in its own ways. 7.5 out of 10. Now, from what I can tell, this is probably going to be my most controversial take in this entire video. After looking around online, it seems like Hunt for the Wilderpeople is generally considered Taika's best film, and I can see why people think that. Just to start out, I think every movie from here on out is practically a masterpiece. Especially with Hunt for the Wilderpeople, I think this movie is genuinely incredible in nearly every way. It's just that the rest of the movies in this list are slightly more incredible. But back to Hunt for the Wilderpeople, you can tell Taika really wanted to show off his home country of New Zealand and its incredible landscapes. And show them off he does. It almost seems like most of the movie is just like a big circle jerk over the authentic Kiwi nature. And I mean that in a good way because it's fucking breathtaking. This movie really blows it out of the water with its characters though. The little fat kid who I'm always gonna know as Russell from Deadpool 2 does a pretty good job, especially for a child actor, with him only being 13 when the movie was made. Sam Neill is great here too, and him and Russell as the father and son who don't really get along but eventually learn to love one another is done really well, even for such an overused cliche in movies. Their on-screen chemistry is believable as hell. And you really grow attached to the two of them. I really just don't understand why Sam Neill doesn't get more movie roles, especially after Jurassic Park. Like, what the fuck is Hollywood thinking? This dude's definitely got range. I also want to shout out the mom character in the movie. She definitely isn't in here a whole lot, but I think she might be Taika Waititi's most fun and likable character that he's ever put onto screen, if I'm being completely honest. Taika himself also plays a role in every single one of his movies, and with maybe the exception of Korg, I think this is by far my favorite fucking appearance that he's made in any one of his films.
Fanta, Doritos, LMP, Burger Rings, Coke Zero.
There's really only one big issue with the film, and it's honestly an issue I'd say that most of Taika's movies face, which is the final act feeling a little too drawn out and unnecessary, especially considering the more effective and grounded storytelling that occurred in the first two acts. But it's still not bad by any means, and it definitely will ruin the film for you. I don't know, I don't have a whole lot to say about this movie, it's just good. Go check it out, 8 out of 10.
I don't say blah blah blah.
I think picking between Hunt for the Wilderpeople and What We Do in the Shadows was the hardest choice I made this whole list. And if I'm being honest with myself, while Wilderpeople is probably the better movie, What We Do in the Shadows is a film I could just see myself coming back to a lot more. And that's mainly due to this genius premise. Taika released this movie right when the found footage genre was at its peak, and it was made in an attempt to sort of parody the horror elements in all those films, but instead with a mockumentary about a bunch of stupid vampires and their normal day-to-day lives. But this premise can only work so good if the actors work good as well, and thankfully they definitely do. Every single character in this movie fucking acts their ass off, and they definitely put up very well with this stupid premise. It's also the first time you really see Taika delve into the more, maybe not action side of things, but he definitely experimented with some computer effects and some other things that he definitely never really used before this, so that's cool and shows like just how much his filmography would change more down the line. Just the whole premise in general though, with bringing these like pretty iconic and supposedly very scary and intimidating characters and just making them these stupid fucking lovable goofballs is so good. I don't know why more movies don't do this. Or I guess a lot of movies do this, they just don't do a good job at it. But Taika is the complete opposite and pulls this off perfectly, without making it feel cheap or disingenuous to who the characters really are. I know humor is subjective, but you'd have to be either blind or deaf, or both, I guess, to say that What We Do in the Shadows isn't funny, at least not a little bit. It's that classic Flight of the Conchords style of comedy, mixed with Taika's brilliant directing and characters that just make this movie that really shouldn't have worked somehow be one of the best movies Taika's ever released.
And we're still friends today.
8 out of 10. Or, I guess I said it was better than Hunt for the Wilderpeople, so 8.1 out of 10. Now, I'm gonna keep this short because I'm planning on making an entire video about the Thor franchise once Love and Thunder comes out, but god damn, who the fuck thought this movie was gonna be any good? Like, even if you just take Ragnarok and compare it with the other movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's leagues above most of those, with one of the first comic book movies that actually looks like a comic book. It's also simultaneously one of the funniest and most heartbreaking films, not just in the MCU, but out of any superhero movie ever. But even when you look at Thor as its own self-contained movie, it fucking rules. The action is engaging and dynamic, the humor has perfect delivery and timing, and the pacing is spot on, which is usually the only issue I have with Taika's movies. All I really need to say is we went from Thor the Dark World to this, and god damn it, I love you for that, Taika. 8.5 out of 10.
German, hello?
Holy shit, I love this movie so much. Jojo Siwa is Taika's most recent film, and undoubtedly, in my opinion, his best. I don't even know where to really start with this, bruh. Jojo's bizarre adventure takes place in Nazi Germany during World War II, and follows a Hitler youth who eventually sees all that's wrong in his country, and more specifically his leader, Adolf Hitler. Now, I know I said Taika was at his peak as Korg, or the fucking pastor from Hunt for the Wilderpeople, but I don't know, him playing Hitler has gotta be one of the biggest surprises in the history of film.
You're 10, Jojo. Start acting like it.
Like, the premise alone for this movie is so genius. And I know that Taika based it off a book or whatever, but it's still definitely his story, you know? It feels like a Taika Waititi movie. Especially like right now, having binged through the rest of his catalog. Jojo Rabbit is such a clever and well-written satire on the Nazi mindset, and somehow still avoids all the usual basic edgy World War II Holocaust jokes that you'd expect to find in a movie about fucking World War II. And instead it opts for a more slapstick type of comedy that fits so perfectly in this already super exaggerated world that Taika made up. It's not just the humor though. Jojo Rabbit exceeds at its deep, heartbreaking moments. I won't spoil it here, but the scene where Jojo finds his mom's shoes is genuinely one of the most sad, bleak, and shocking things I've ever experienced in a film. But back to the shit that's not chronically depressing, every single character here plays a vital role in not just moving along the plot of the movie, but advancing the satire of the whole situation as well. A couple of the standouts are Scarlett Johansson as Jojo's mom, who is so fucking good in here, and really shows her acting chops, especially if you've only seen her as like Black Widow or something. Definitely watch this, you'll get a whole different side of her that you've probably never seen before. And Sam Rockwell too is so fucking good here. Which, like, once again just proves that he's one of the most underrated actors in all of Hollywood, but, I mean, fuck if I know, no one fucking listens to me.
Hey, hello, guys.
All in all, this is easily one of the best dark comedy movies I've ever seen, and it's also one of the most beautiful films of all time. It 100% deserved its Oscars, and as a matter of fact, it deserved all the Oscars. 9.5 out of 10. Well, as of the time of recording, that is officially all of the movies of one Taika Waititi. And I had a good time going through this. Like I said in the very beginning of this video, this dude really just hasn't made a bad movie. He's fucking allergic to it. And with his next film, Thor Love and Thunder, it really could go both ways. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, the movie looks really good, but I just haven't been really feeling a lot of the stuff that Marvel's been putting out recently. So I'm sure even if the movie isn't great, it probably won't be Taika's fault. But if you paid attention to this video, you probably found out that pretty much every single movie in this list was in chronological order, which means that each movie Taika's put out has been better than the last, with really only one exception, but that doesn't even fucking count. And since my list is the only list that matters, obviously, this really is great to see as a fan of film, especially with Taika's name being attached to so many up-and-coming projects. If you made it this far, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. Also, tell me your own list in the comments and give me some more directors to rank. I had fun doing this. But with all that being said, I've been Cole45. See you next time.